Check out the sack on this thing.
Really, really cool.
Oh, hey, fungi friends. It's a beautiful fall day up here in the hills of Napa, and I'm just surrounded by all this incredible nature. It's gorgeous up here, but I'm here because it rained over the weekend, and I have an intuition that there's gonna be some mushrooms because of the rain. Thankfully, we got a little bit of early rain in September and a few hits early in October, and then we just got this rain this past weekend. And because we've gotten this early rain here in California, it means that there's a good shot of me finding porcini and butter boletes. Because in a lot of seasons, if it doesn't rain until, I don't know, around Thanksgiving, you're not gonna find these mushrooms and you sort of miss out on the whole fall season. But because we got this early rain, I'm very excited to go check out what's happening. I wanna bring you guys along with me so I can show you what I'm looking for. So let's go see what fungi we can find in the woods. Up here, the habitat I'm hunting in is a lot of Doug fir, like this one here, and a lot of tan oak, like what is behind me. Tan oak has these sort of wide leaves with serrations on the edge, and it's not a true oak, but it looks a lot like an oak. There's also a bunch of madrone around, as well as plenty of poison oak. So I gotta be careful. The hazards here are the poison oak and the ticks, not any of the mushrooms. I'm not worried about those. I simply have to keep an eye out on where I'm stepping and if there's anything on me. But it's a really sort of beautiful nature spot, and I'm so thankful to have access to this bit of nature here in the Napa Valley. And this is up in the hills, so I'm also at elevation, about 1,800 feet. And so it's different in terms of the arc of our season here than what happens on the coast, because the coast tends to start a little bit earlier because there's more moisture from the fog drip and stuff like that. But here I've got access to a lot more land where there's less foragers. This is a madrone. Good look at it there. And then the poison oak this time of year doesn't have leaves on it, so it's really hard to see, but all these little sticks along the side of the path, that stuff, that's poison oak. So that'll absolutely mess you up if you're sensitive to it. I've never reacted, but I'm really careful around it because I do not want to react. So I'm not worried about getting some on my boots, but I'm certainly not gonna take one of these little sticks and rub it all over my face. So keep an eye out for the poison oak because it can really mess you up. So much of the forest is pretty dry here, but I am seeing activity on logs. So this is Flebia radiata. It's a crust fungi. It's pretty cool looking. I love this stuff. It's not edible, but it's really neat to see, and it definitely is a sign that there's fungal activity. So there's some Flebia. All right, so here's a mushroom. Let's see what this is. I'm pretty sure it's a bolete. And let's move some stuff to the side. Oh my gosh, I think this might be a Satan's bolete. That's really cool. So this is probably Rubra Boletes eastwoodii, just judging on the size of the base of the mushroom there. Oh, that's really neat. So this is a toxic bolete. You do not want to confuse this with butters or any other edible bolete. It's going to have red pores and stain blue when you pick it, but I think I might just leave this one for now because it's so cool. Thank you, Satan. There's been a lot of fire abatement here, so they cut down a bunch of trees and there's a lot of dead matter. And as such, I'm seeing a whole bunch of brittle stems. These little Satharella mushrooms are absolutely everywhere in huge carpets, but I'm also really close to poison oak, so I need to be careful. But these kind of, turn brown and fall apart after a couple of days. And they have these dark brown spores, but they're called brittle stems because this. Stems are really brittle, but these are Satharella. And they're just everywhere. So exposure-wise, I'm now on a northern-facing slope, which means it gets less sun and there's a little more moisture back here. And right now I'm just walking the side of the path because I could be in the woods, but more often than not, boletes love to come up right on the side of the path, kind of like this, near the edge of disturbance. So I'm gonna keep looking, and what I wanna do is keep an eye out for shrumps, which actually I see one right now. Let's check it out. Okay, so I'm looking at the side of the trail, and it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but in real life, I can see that there's a little bit of a bump here. There's kind of a dome structure. So I wanna go ahead and dig this up and see what's under this shrump. Because I have a feeling, yes, that's a mushroom. don't know if it's gonna be any good or not, but it feels all right. Let's give it a little tap. Ooh, that's gonna be kind of spongy, but I'll take a look at it now. Oh, that's really spongy. Ugh. All right, so, you know, even though that was under a shrump, this is still pretty gooey. That is a queen bolete, but it is starting to like just completely fall apart. So I'm gonna leave that be, but I hope that there's more. Queen boletes are growing here with the tan oak, and they have sort of a much darker brown cap than most kings, and they're good. They're just equivalent to any kind of king bolete porcini, but that one is too soggy and wet for me to worry about. So I'm just gonna keep looking along the side of the path, see what else I can find. Whoa, there's a huge, impressive Amanita. So let's take a look at the top of it. It is kind of a bright yellow, and it does have little warts and dots on it. So I'm gonna say that this is at least related to Amanita gemata, or the gemata class. Hang on, I gotta navigate around a piece of poison oak that's trying to touch me. Okay, so there's another edible mushroom out here that's an Amanita called a cocora, and it's also yellow, but to tell them apart, you gotta look at the mushroom and kind of pay attention to the morphological features. So like I said, this has lots of little dots on top. The cocora will have sort of a big fat piece of white fluff that's all one piece, and it'll rub off really easily. These warts don't come off super easily, and they're lots of little pieces, so that's a big thing. This has a really well-defined like skirt annulus here, and the base of this, if I can get it out in one piece, I'll show you. All right, so the base is sort of one big bulb, but there's not a sac around it. So this is actually related to Amanita muscaria, and I believe the cap has the same kind of ibotenic acid and muscimol, maybe not quite as much as muscaria, but it's in there. And that also means that this one would be edible if you double boiled it and threw the water away, because you'd be leaching out the toxin. But this is not one you'd want to eat straight up because it would make you sick, just like muscaria. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this back in the ground, but it's a good point of comparison if I find some cocora, which hopefully we'll see, and you can compare the color and the morphological features of those mushrooms. So I'm seeing lots more of these yellow amanitas. There's a bunch of them, and that's a good sign because it means there's mycorrhizal activity. So there's another one. There's a few more up here. I can see some of them have even been munched on by animals and uprooted. So that's a good sign, actually, because it means that there's probably more edible mushrooms nearby. And there's another little button of this. That's pretty cool. Wow. Look at that. Whew. That's a cute little button. I almost want to take that home, let it fruit out, watch it grow up. I don't know, I'll keep looking around here. I have a feeling that there's gotta be an edible mushroom nearby, but I'll just keep looking for the animal activity and scanning around the forest floor here. There's more Amanita, but there will be boletes nearby. Well, I was right. Right near these Amanitas, I found a little shrump right here. I go underneath. Yep, I got a queen bolete. Ooh, wow, that's a pretty one. Holy moly. Super white pores, that reticulation on the stem there. These are gorgeous mushrooms, and I love eating them. They always have a little bit of this white patina on top. So I saw this one shrump, and I was like looking around. I put my bag down to help me mark what I was looking for, and I saw something else right there. You see that? So this is another queen bolete. Oh yeah. Ooh, that's another really pretty one. Wow. So I have two sort of perfect queen buttons right here, surrounded by Amanitas, and it's kind of making me wonder, because king boletes are associated with Amanita muscaria, so I'm wondering if maybe queen boletes in this habitat with the tan oak are associated with this Amanita, and so I can use them as a marker to find each other. That's pretty awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my queen bolete. I always like to do sort of a quick field dressing of a mushroom by cleaning it in nature rather than getting a bunch of dirt in my bag. And then I'm also leaving pieces of the mushroom in nature to continue propagating and serving as food for animals and stuff like that. So I got a really nice queen button here with that little patina on top. Pretty white pores and reticulation on the stem. And I'm just gonna trim this dirt part off. And I see a little bit of yellow in there. That means it's got a mold called Hypomyces chrysospermos growing on it, the bolete eater. And queens are really prone to getting infected with that. So what I'm gonna do is cut off anything that looks even remotely yellow or orangey, because that stuff will spread even by the time I get it home. So I'm very careful about cleaning my queens, especially, because that stuff is toxic and it's bitter. That's a pretty nice looking queen bolete button. Let me see if I can find some more. Here's a good shot of a bolete that I saw. It was really pretty, but it's got this Hypomyces mold on it. Once it starts growing that and turning brown, it gets bitter and gross and toxic. So I'm just gonna leave this whole mushroom because even though it looked pretty nice, it's still got that patina on top, it's already going bad. All right, I found some of the edible Amanita, the Cocora. This is Amanita calyptroderma, and it's different from the Jamata. So this has the warts on top. This usually has a white membrane. You can see it on this one over here, and this peels off pretty easily. So that's a very distinguishing diagnostic feature of these mushrooms in section Caesariae, which are edible Amanitas. So we'll look down towards the base, and you'll see there's a big sac down there. So that's called the vulva. On this mushroom, it's just a bulbous base. This one has a sac-like vulva. So it should come out, and this is important why you want to like pick Amanitas out so you can see the base. It's part of how you distinguish their features. This does tend to have a partial veil. Caesars do, Vaginata don't. But this has more kind of like creamy gills instead of the sort of pure white gills. You can see the difference in color there. That's really important. The other thing with the Caesars is you'll always see striations, these little sort of edges, marks on the edge of the cap there. And you won't necessarily see that with these until they get quite a bit older. But even when these are young, you'll see those little edges. So this also has a hollow stipe. So if I break this in half, it has sort of a pithy center in there. You stick your finger into it, right? Whereas this is more solid. Actually, this has a little bit of a hollow stipe too. And that's why you can't just rely on one feature. You got to look at like all the things because things can be variable from mushroom to mushroom. But that's the, this is the Jamata, whereas this is the calyptroderma. So that's toxic like Muscaria, and this is edible, although I don't really love it because it's super fishy and I'm not a big fan of it. So I'm gonna leave this just in place, and I'll give that one a little tap. Thank you, friend. All right, let's go see if we can find some more boletes. I keep seeing animal activity, which means I must be close. Just found a couple chunks of Rumeria or coral mushrooms, and these are great habitat indicators that mycorrhizal species are active. So if you see these, you know you can probably find Amanitas and Porcini and other chanterelles and stuff like that. So it's good to see some Rumeria coral mushrooms out here. Okay, so I saw more Amanitas, and then I saw this bolete, which got me excited, but it's not a butter bolete. This is actually a xerocomus bolete. So it has these kind of yellow pores, and usually it has some like yellow mycelium on the base. And I call them suede boletes because they're really fuzzy and soft on top. And these are edible. They're just not super great. The texture is kind of meh, and the flavor's a little meh. So I'll just put this back, let it keep growing, and see if I can go find some other boletes that are a little bit tastier. Whoa, there's just tons of this little brown mushroom here. I'm not quite sure what this is because little brown mushrooms are hard to ID, but they are just absolutely all over this pile of wood chips. So it's fun to see mushrooms having a ball doing their thing because they're just growing everywhere here. Well, here's a cool little mushroom. So it's not that exciting because it's not edible and it's just growing on dead wood. But when I put it under UV light, it does something really cool. So check this out. Whoa. See that? It fluoresces. It just looks really, really cool. Woo! I think this is Gymnopolis, a rust gill, but they are UV fluorescent, so that's really awesome. And this is a UV 365 nanometer wavelength, so it is a little bit easier for photography. It doesn't wash things out and make them so purple. Beautiful Gymnopolis. I thought at first this might be a bolete, but looking at it, I see the striations on the edge. I can see the white membrane, so this is definitely an Amanita calyptroderma cocora. Ooh, that's a big, pretty specimen that's been halfway eaten by something, but wow, that is just a massive sack on that thing. Whoa. That's a nice big vulva. All right, I'm hot on the trail of a bunch of butters. Here's one that's just been absolutely mashed up by an animal, chewed it all up, didn't leave much, but there's some back here. Oh, actually, that one's not too bad. That's a great thing about animals. They're not super thorough. They, just destroyed that one, but this one actually looks okay. And behind me, I saw this sort of big chunk of dirt here, and I'm feeling like there might be a mushroom underneath, so let's look. Yep, there's a mushroom there. What is it, is the question. Is it a butter? Or is it a queen? It kind of looks like a queen. Ooh, nope, it's a butter. That makes sense. It's buried underground. So because of this really obvious thing that an animal left, I was able to find two pretty decent butter boletes. And that's how I hunt here, as I just walk around and look for stuff that animals have left, and then look around that and I can find mushrooms. But I like to wear gloves when I harvest these because your hands get really, really dirty. But they have these beautiful yellow pores that stain dark blue. The flesh itself doesn't stain blue, super like all over. It's kind of here and there it stains blue. So that the flesh stains erratically blue, but not straight blue like Boletes. And you can always do a little nibble and spit test with these because these are not bitter, whereas Boletes, which looks quite a bit like these, is very bitter. So you'll be able to tell the difference real quick. Okay, let's trim up some of these butter boletes. Good to leave this dirt in the woods. Also, this is part of why I tap them. Tapping gets a lot of dirt off these things. Okay, so use my knife to cut off the parts where I can't get the dirt off. And I'll leave this stuff for the bugs and slugs. Oh, looks pretty good. It's a nice butter. Okay, this one's a little dirtier. This one was closer. It has some animal damage on it, so I'll use my knife to cut that off. Actually, there's quite a bit of animal damage on the top, so we'll see if I actually want to take this one or not, but I'm going to clean it up a little bit, get a look at it. Trim off the parts the animal ate pretty aggressively. See if there's usable mushroom left. Yeah, it's not bad. I'll take it for now. Might leave it later on if I find more mushrooms that are in better shape. I'll just take this out of my bag and put it back in the forest floor, but this one looks pretty nice, so I'm excited to have some more butters. Wow, an animal really had a field day here. This is hilarious. It's just like completely manged and mashed up. This is why I get laughed so much when people get upset about cut versus pluck, because like animals don't use a knife. They're not down here doing anything carefully. They just like rip stuff up. This must have been a massive, massive butter bolete that just got completely chewed up by some kind of animal. It left a mess. But this is how mushrooms spread their spores. This is part of their strategy. This is what they want to have happen. Here's a good-sized butter that hasn't been completely torn up by animals. Just a little soggy. Yeah, that's too old. That's squishy. And just completely full of bugs, so we'll leave that be. But behind me, I did see a little egg. I think this is a Kokora egg because it has a sort of white membrane that came off, so. Yeah, that'll be all right. Take that with me. It's kind of fun to peel off this outer membrane. Very satisfying, revealing that perfect golden button inside. Well, this is fun. I found some Hericium coraloides. Normally I see this like growing on dead logs, but I think it's like almost growing out of the ground because there's probably dead wood in the ground. There we go. Yeah, there's a log down there. All right, 2 fun little bonus clusters of Hericium coraloides. It's a relative of Hericium arenaceus, the lion's mane, but this is called coral tooth. It's a little more open in structure, but it's just as good. And I actually like this better for making the kind of crab cake type thing. These are really nice and have great texture. Well, I'm in fundamentally different habitat than I was before because it's a lot of deciduous oaks, but I was walking by and I saw this dead tree with some chicken at the base. So let's go check it out, see if it's any good. Might be a little old, but I'm hoping there's some sheltered pieces that might still be good. Chicken of the woods tastes better when it's on oak. It's better than when it's growing on eucalyptus, but see, I'll just break this off. I'll use my knife. Okay. Yeah, that feels soft enough. It's a pretty nice little shelf. Let me cut this part off. Yeah. It's like a stick that grew right through it. But there you go, some chicken of the woods. Litiparus, and out here it's Gilbertsonii. It's a species we have. A little more in here. So I can grab a little bit of this. I'll leave him plenty to keep going. Oh, it's kind of hard, my knife, but getting it. All right, nice chunk of chicken. So, impromptu find of chicken of the woods. I'll leave some to keep growing in the tree there. Thank you, chicken. Oh boy, that's some old moldy chicken. Woo! There's a bunch of it at the base of this oak tree here, but it is way past its prime. It's definitely a bug hotel by now. Not a bad looking bag. I got all my queen boletes, butter boletes, all that chicken of the woods. Nice, not bad for an afternoon of foraging. So I'm walking to the path, I see this big dug fir root, and right at the base is a bunch of Dyer's polypore. So this is Phaleus schwitzeni, and it's all fuzzy and yellow along the edge. You can see it's kind of old there, but this is a mushroom you can't eat. It's probably toxic, but it does work really well for dyeing fabrics. It'll make a range of yellows and greens, and it's really versatile and easy to use. You can even make henna out of it. It's pretty cool because it's UV fluorescent. Nice chunk of Dyer's polypore. These are cute mushrooms. Here's a dug fir log absolutely covered. What are called ginger tails, Zemphrylina. That's cool. Ooh, little saprobic decay mushrooms, but they're really neat and they're just all over the stump. I'm getting into golden hour light here, but I saw a big shrimp by the trailside and I figured I'd unearth it, see what was under here. I have a feeling, yeah. These are probably agaricus of some sort. Yeah, so I think these would be ones that are likely toxic. Oh, there's some. I already broke the surface, so here we go. Yeah, so these are agaricus like a portobello, but I think these would smell like phenol and make you kind of sick. Might be, yeah, see that yellow staining? That's a sign that would make you sick if you tried to eat it. So leave those behind. It's probably the yellow stainer or hondensis, one of the toxic agaricus species out here. Whoa, this big dusty thing is a dead man's foot, or Pizzolithus. So it starts as a little lump on the ground, and it has little kind of peridioles or holes inside that are filled with spores, and as it matures, it turns just into this giant chunk of stuff that they call dog turd fungus, or sometimes even the dye ball, because you can dye fabrics with this, but dead man's foot is pretty appropriate for this thing. Ugh, big spored out mess. Just leave it. Here's a great side-by-side comparison of two different boletes that I see here in the fall season in California. This is a Boletes, or Satan's bolete. And this is East Woodii, because this is a big fat bottom and kind of pinkish cap, and there's really red pores there that stain dark blue. This one is a liver bolete, or Suede migdanalis, and it's got a more brown, although somewhat reddish top, and also kind of orangey red pores, but a little bit lighter than the Boletes. The important thing to keep attention, the important thing to tell them apart, is this one doesn't really have true reticulation here on the stem. It has these little dots, whereas the Satan's bolete has actual webbing underneath the stem, right? So that's reticulation, and it doesn't have those kind of dots on the stipe. So with that, you can tell the difference between a Boletes and a Suede. This one is a toxic mushroom. There's no amount of cooking or processing you can do to make it safe. Whereas this one is toxic raw, but if you cook it well, is safe to eat, although it's kind of sour and musty, and I don't love the flavor. There's also a slight difference in their blue staining reaction, but you can see here too, you can really tell the difference when you see them side by side. So I hope this helps. That one's toxic, that one's edible. Boletes, sualalis, Satan's bolete, liver bolete. I'm gonna cut up this big old Satan's bolete, show you guys what it looks like, because it's got a really cool blue staining reaction. Whoa. Check that out.
This big pile of Satan's bolete that I cut up and left here in nature for the bugs and slugs to enjoy. This is a toxic mushroom, so I wouldn't have eaten this, but a lot of these mushrooms go moldy or rot out pretty soon afterwards, so I'm not doing any harm to nature. If anything, I'm helping to spread spores and showing you guys how this thing turns blue, which I think is really cool. And it's a great diagnostic tool to understand how to identify these toxic mushrooms. Here's a comparison of the liver bolete when it's all cut up, so it turns really dark blue, with the Satan's bolete, which doesn't turn quite as dark blue. It's a lighter blue. So you can see both of them side by side. That is edible, that one's toxic. Swellellus rubroboletus. Gosh, it's beautiful up here. Look at those vineyards. Golden hour sun.
Whoa, check out this amazing lineup of mushrooms. Found so much good stuff today in the woods. I got my big queen boletes here, this Boletes regius. I have my butter boletes, Bitter boletes, and these are delicious. I have a calla boletes, which is a bitter bolete, so that's not toxic, but I wouldn't eat it because it's bitter. I got a liver bolete, Swellellus, and these look like liver and stain blue when you cut them up, but they are not toxic. You can't eat them when they're cooked. This is a Xerocomus bolete. And I've got a Swellus bolete here as well. And then I've got some Romeria, so this is a mycorrhizal indicator species. I've got my Hericium coraloides, which is a branched open form of Hericium, and a Hericium arenaceus, which is a lion's mane. Then I've got some chunks of chicken of the woods, Latiparus gilbertsonii, the west coast chicken. And then I've got my Amanitas, and so I've got Cocoras here, which is Amanita calyptroderma in section Caesariae, as well as these grisettes, so these are in section Vaginate, and these are both edible Amanitas. So what a fantastic selection of stuff that I found here in the Napa Valley during fall, because we got some early rain. Oh yeah, it's mushroom season, baby. Check out this big pile of butters. Ooh, I'm gonna cook these up. No such thing as overprepared and pan with mushrooms. I just gotta cook them down longer. Butter bolete carpaccio. Butter bolete carpaccio. Butter bolete carpaccio. Got my butter bolete carpaccio, some olive oil, some lemon juice, salt, and pepper.
texture is amazing. They're like crunchy and buttery and silky and soft, but they hold up to the marinade. Raw butter bolete carpaccio. So good.